Hi, my Mercurial mercenaries! You guys have surprised me once again. You don't fail to impress. I asked you to name me your 5 favourite drummers, and I wasn't sure because, as I found out recently, there's so many youngsters watching this channel, youngsters compared to me anyway, that, and I know that a lot of us now are listening to music where one person does all the instruments, plays all the instruments, and it's drum machines and synths and loops. And there are probably people out there who say, Mercurial number 6, Mercurial number 6, what's a drummer? Well, I shouldn't be so judgmental, my mercenaries, because you know who drummers are. And you have been telling me your 5 favourite drummers. Now remember, this arose because I recorded that video a few days ago and Charlie Watts had turned 78. Charlie Watts, the drummer of the Rolling Stones. Because he had his birthday, I got to thinking, there's something about Charlie Watts' style. He sort of, when he's playing the hi-hat and when he hits the snare, when he hits the snare, he tends to not hit the hi-hat. Most people, hi-hat, snare. Charlie Watts, when he's hitting the snare, his hi-hat hand tends to be up in the air. Hit the snare, get in the air, right in the air. And he got me to thinking, I like that. There's something about the guy. He's just got a little bit of something he does differently to everybody else. And that's why I was thinking about characterful drumming, just like you have characterful singing or characterful guitar playing or carrots in the ground. We might get on, let's face it, we're surely going to get on to character, your favourite singers and your favourite guitar players. And a whole host of other questions that you guys have already sort of said that you'd quite enjoy answering. And when we do these sort of things, I quite enjoy it too, because I think, well, what could I ask my Mercurial mercenaries to get us involved in a sense of community, you know? And I think, oh, what albums have you listened to the most, or what are your favourite drummers? And I have to think about it, because I think if I ask you what your top 5 favourite drummers are, I'm going to have to think of my top 5 drummers to sort of join in and sort of just push the boat out in the first place. Ship, boat. It's fun, I think, to have a little think. It makes you think about all the music you've ever experienced. And when we had to think about our top 5 favourite drummers, I mean, I suppose that's different to, perhaps they are different questions. Who do you think the top 5 greatest drummers of all time are, compared to who are your top 5 favourite drummers? And overall, from your responses, I was surprised at the love Ringo Starr got, because I always stick up for Ringo, and it's because I enjoy characterful singing. We're back to carrots again. But I enjoy character. And yeah, Ringo's got character. Is he one of the 5 greatest drummers of all time? Right. But he's got character. Let's just have a quick look through some of the drummers that you guys have mentioned, okay? And there was a lot of love, I think, for the drummers from King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard, and I understand that. What a phenomenal combo they are. Most of the time playing exactly the same thing. Live, that gives sheer power, but the ability to have 2 drummers who can deviate, and they're not the first band to do that. And I've actually noticed that now that I've sort of opened the doors to bands with 2 drummers, there are quite a lot of bands with 2 drummers. John Bonham still gets mentions, and rightly so, because John Bonham was a sheer force of nature. And I mean, I said it in the first video about Achilles' Last Stand, and I'd put that over Moby Dick, But Achilles' Last Stand, if you just had to pick, perhaps we could do that, you know, picking your top 5 songs where, your top 5 best songs where drums heavily feature, but Achilles' Last Stand would be hard not to put at number 1. Lots of collective love for Dave Grohl. It's not just me who appreciates there's more to Dave Grohl than being a singer, guitar player for Foo Fighters. In fact, for me, I'm not that interested in the whole singing, guitar playing thing. For me, Dave Grohl is a drummer. It's quite odd that he spends most of his time not drumming now. We've got bits and pieces here. We've had a few mentions for Radiohead. We have to have people mentioning Keith Moon, because Keith Moon, again, if you're talking about characterful drummers, just weirdly for me, I like reading about The Who. I like the occasional song by The Who. Not a massive Who fan, funnily enough. You know, bite me. Yeah, you know, vocal tics in my generation, a purposeful stutter. But, I've had enough now, Roger. I mean, Roger doesn't give a shit what I say about him. He'll survive. Lots of votes for the likes of Kevin Parker. I do remember enjoying the drums when I was listening to the Tame Impala records. So that's perfectly valid. Asking for your favourite drummers. The Cure. Ginger Baker crops up a fair amount amongst you guys. Those of you who don't know Ginger Baker, I mentioned it in a comment with Mr. Floyd somewhere in this comment section. But there was a documentary on Ginger Baker a few years ago, quite heavy, like properly featuring Ginger Baker himself in it, talking to camera. But he's a real oddity, that guy. A real oddity. I wouldn't say he's a particularly nice man, but an absolutely phenomenal drummer. Phenomenal drummer. I've got to say also, a lot of you mentioned drummers that I've never heard of. But then that's to be expected, because I could probably name you musicians that you've never heard of. So collectively, that's what I like about this. This channel's never been really just about me talking shit to you. It has always been about to and fro. Even back when I had a handful of subscribers, a handful of people who were interested. Evil White Clown Punk, Mr. Floyd, Ed Dana, whoever. We've always had a little bit of back and forth. The channel's got bigger. People want me to listen to albums. I think you're getting the message now that there's more to this channel than just watching me listen to albums. I think we can have a bit of back and forth, a bit of banter, a bit of community. That's the whole point of being Mercurial mercenaries. And I'm not even really going to pay you to kill anybody. It's okay. We're Mercurial musical mercenaries. It doesn't work. Oh no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. That I couldn't look, the drummer of Rush, he's great as well, but I couldn't include him because I don't know how to pronounce his name, because I want to call him Neil Peart, and then you look at the spelling and you think, well, actually it's kind of like heart but with a P, Neil Peart, and then you'll hear someone like a Rush fan call him Neil Peart. I can't pronounce it, so he's not in the list. He couldn't even be in the list. Buddy Rich. There's some proper old school drummers that you guys are mentioning. If you look up Buddy Rich on YouTube, you'll see some fantastic drum solos that he used to do. Phenomenal drummer. Once you get into the realm of the great jazz drummers, holy shit, there's some amazing stuff going on there. Kevin Parker, Chad Smith. It's Chili's, isn't it? I mean, some of his work, I used to listen to him all the time because I was a massive fan of Blood Sugar Sex Magic. Fantastic drummer. Randy from the Stone Roses. If for nothing more than the hat, why not? Bill Ward, it was hard to leave Bill Ward out. Some of the drumming for Black Sabbath, it's just jazz drumming. It's absolutely spectacular. Absolutely spectacular.
Brought out generals gathered in their masses, beating them around just like witches at black masses.
Rhyming masses with masses.
Evil minds that plot destruction. Sorcerer deaths.
Kin jazz drumming. Kin jazz drumming. I'm glad there's a mention there for Stuart Copeland. More Dave Grohl. Evil White Clown Punk. He mentions Lars Ulrich. No one wanted Lars Ulrich. Lars was a weird one to put in there because Lars is worldwidely appreciated as one of the worst drummers. I mean, I can't buy into that. And I kind of stand... Look, is Lars Ulrich one of my favourite drummers? Really? Being that I don't listen to a lot of Metallica? Probably not. But when I do see him live and he stands up behind his kit and he just whacks the drums and he kind of walks around his kit, it's just... it's character. It's character. It's memorable. There are so many drummers out there who can sit behind a kit and keep time and are just brilliant. And I suppose the sign of a good drummer is often the fact that you don't notice them. It's when there's a bad drummer and you think, ooh, and you keep sort of doing that, Esther Rantzen teeth. Ooh. Quite a lot of mentions among you guys for Zach Hill. Not familiar with his work yet. Again, Tobias, Marco Miniman, Mario Duplantier. People that I'm not really familiar with. I mean, I really like The Raven That Refused to Sing. Perhaps Marco Miniman plays on that record. I need to check. Dave Lombardo here, mentioned by Cesar Adrian Rodriguez Benavides. Dave Lombardo, Slayer. Rain in Blood is absolutely supreme. So perfectly fitting that he'd be in the chart. It was hard to leave Phil Collins out. For those of you who don't realise, and you probably do because you watch this channel, but for those of you who don't realise, Phil Collins was, because he's got a few medical issues now, was definitely one of the greatest drummers of all time. And there are a lot of people, including Donna here, and me, while I was listening to the Genesis albums, who would say perhaps Phil Collins was the greatest drummer of all time. Yeah, Phil Collins. Yeah, go and listen to my Genesis album playthroughs. Fantastic stuff. More for Zach Hill. Ringo, like I said, I was impressed with the way that you guys didn't diss my inclusion of Ringo. You were kind of on board with me on that one. Lots of mentions of John Bonham. There was a time in my teens where I thought John Bonham was the greatest drummer, and perhaps he is, perhaps he was. There was a time when I was so into Led Zeppelin that if I had to, I think we'll do a question like this one day, where I might ask you to come up with your super. So start thinking now, for the future question, coming up with your super group. If you could make up a group of any singer from any time, dead or alive, a singer, a bass player, a couple of guitar players, drummer, maybe a keyboard player. There was a time in my youth where, singer I would have picked Robert Plant, bass player I would have picked John Paul Jones, drummer I would have picked John Bonham, guitar player I would have picked Jimmy Page. It was that kind of thing, Very hard to leave Bill Bruford out. Bruford, Bill Bruford. If you do nothing else tonight, go and listen to Heart of the Sunrise by Yes. The original version of Fragile. Just go and listen to it. What a song. What a song. SD67 says Phil Rudd, and then kind of feels embarrassed for saying it. There's nothing wrong with admiring or having a simple drummer as your favourite drummer, because you're absolutely right. What Phil Rudd brought to AC/DC was absolute just in the pocket playing. It doesn't always have to be about that. Like I said about guitar players, you got that and you got that. And with drummers too, you've got... And you've got... Bam, 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 bam. Bam, 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 whatever. Ringo Starr, Steven Adler, Angus. Angus chooses himself as well. Angus Payne. Angus Payne. Been quite a few votes for the guy out of Arctic Monkeys. Alpha Naymans is the only person I think out of everybody who agrees with me about Nico McBrain. Peter Criss gets a vote here from Ben 2D. A few votes amongst people, including Richard Kurbis here for Cozy Powell. Now, I haven't listened to a lot of Cozy Powell, but the stuff I have listened to, he was a He was a talented guy as well. Do you know who else I really like? I like Jason Bonham. He doesn't get enough credit. Yeah, he's just. Yeah, he's just John Bonham's son. Just. But holy shit, that guy can drum. Fishy Paw not following the rules. Well, I said name 5. He goes with Ginger Baker as well. I appreciate the sheer talent of Ginger Baker. But again, just like I said with The Who earlier, historically I haven't been the greatest fan of Cream either. I like Cream, but there's a nice cream flavour for everybody, isn't there? Jimmy M mentions Alex Van Halen here. I'm not a number. Another vote for Dave Lombardo. Ash Mofo says, that's a great and understandable list. As a drummer, I would have omitted Lars, but you know what? You're right. Ultimately, character and musicality wins. That's what I was trying to get at here. I think the people who want to bash a player like Lars Ulrich, and he's not the only one, I think the same things could be levelled at someone like Ringo Starr, where you dispute his proficiency, or you say things like, well, I could drum better than him, and you've got to think, you might be able to drum better than him. 100 people might be able to drum better than him. 1,000 people might be able to drum better than Lars Ulrich or Ringo Starr. But what did Ringo Starr and Lars Ulrich bring to the world? And could you replicate that? Could you? Maybe you could. Maybe I'll be listening to your music one day. Lots of people repeating the same name for 5 times to emphasise how much they like one drummer. But you are allowed to have more than one favourite drummer, right? Now, I've got to admit, I'm not sure who Levon Helm is. So apologies for that. I'll Google him in a minute. I'll Google him now. Hang on. Ah, yes, the drummer for the band. Yes, someone emailed me earlier, I think, mentioning him. Yeah, I haven't listened to any band stuff, but I did watch the documentary, the Scorsese one from years and years ago. So I believe they're all pretty good musicians in that band, aren't they? But I mean, you've got to be, when your band is called The Band, there's lots of bands out there, but we're The Band. Who are you with? I'm with the band. What, like a groupie? No, I'm with the band. What are you? What? Who's the band? No, the band. I'm with the band. I'm in the band. What band? Meg White. That's what I mean about character. Look at this one. Look at what Nicholas is saying here. Ringo Starr.
She's got a ticket to ride, bum, boom. She's got a ticket to ride, bum, bum, boom. She's got a ticket to ride, and she don't care.
Just characterful. More people should attach the tambourine to the hi-hat stand and operate the bloody thing with your foot. Ringo Starr, Meg White. Bash, boosh, bash. Keith Moon. A few votes for Animal as well, I noticed. Can't go wrong with Animal. John Bonham, Bill Ward. And Nicholas gives Mitch Mitchell an honourable mention, and rightly so, because his work with Jimi Hendrix was absolutely phenomenal. Like I said in a reply here, maybe this one. Yeah. There was a period of time around the late 60s, early 70s, when drumming talent was just out of control. And it was around that time. You had Ginger Baker, and you had Mitch Mitchell, and John Bonham, and Keith Moon, and then you had the guys from Yes, or King Crimson or whatever. Everyone was just on fire. It was at a time where music was real. People played real instruments. People recorded to tape. They had to get it right. They went on to the old grey whistle test. People would wear smelly old vests, big beards, sweat, drumsticks, and just cracking, I was going to say cracking one off, but cracking one out, that's no better. Cracking the drums out, just bombast and sheer skill. And yeah, we're a little bit in danger these days of being a bit... You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean anything's better or worse than anything else. Times change, music rolls on, the music of today builds on the music of yesterday. We can mix real drums and samples, and we can mix everything we want. We can chuck all the paint in a bucket, stir it around and chuck it on a canvas. Music is everything. Music is nothing. And like I've said before, music in the end just has to die. Whether you've got a big beard and a sweaty string vest or not. I mentioned Roger Taylor out of Queen. Fantastic drummer. Although there is another Roger Taylor. The drummer of Duran Duran. Yeah? Actually, now thinking about it, Daniel Galvez, I'd assume you're talking about Roger Taylor out of Queen. But I suppose that ain't necessarily so correct me if I was wrong. Kendrick Everarts. Again, for emphasis, you're going for Gavin Harrison 5 times. Let me just check who Gavin Harrison is, I'm sorry. Okay, Porcupine Tree. That's the Steve Wilson band. Another vote for Dave Grohl. Another vote for Alex Van Halen. Nick Mason gets a shout there. His work with Pink Floyd is quite spectacular. Obviously, when we're talking about naming 5 of your favourite drummers, what you could really do is you could really name 10, 20, 30, 50, couldn't you? There's something quite difficult and nice about having to just narrow it down to 5 and just jettison people that you adore just to pin it down to 5. Danny Carey, don't know who that is. Okay, that's Tool's drummer. I don't know a lot by Tool. From what you guys tell me, Tool are a fantastic band. Are they sort of like a proggy metal band? I don't know, you tell me. Another vote for Ginger Baker, Phil Collins, Bill Ward. If you're not sure of just how intricate the drumming is on Black Sabbath records, go and listen to some of the early Sabbath albums. Absolutely spectacular. Just listen to the first Black Sabbath album. Absolutely spectacular. Lars Ulrich. He's not even the best drummer in Metallica. I like it. I think we'll call it a day there. And that's been a longer video than I anticipated, but I just wanted us to have the back and forth that we so often have. And I like the fact that even in this day and age of pop music, electronic music, and bands recording little sections, cutting and splicing, copying, pasting, people out there, I'm talking about you guys, you appreciate music. And you know that there are drummers from the past who are great, and we've mentioned them all here. And there are still drummers today who are great, and you've been mentioning them here. And I appreciate that. And I think collectively, if we could dip our toes into some of these drummers that we've never heard of, because I haven't heard of some of these, I guarantee you haven't heard of some of these. Let's just all share. If I could turn back time, if I could find a way